drugs. I never did. I don't even take aspirin. Whatever's coming out, whatever I'm remembering clearly. It was very dark, and I saw these 5 little characters, guys, whatever they were. Big heads, big eyes. They were kind of a putty, whitish, grayish color. They were humanoid, 2 legs, 2 arms. And they laid me down, and I don't remember having my clothes removed or taking them off, but I didn't have any clothes on. And they did all sorts of experiments to me. When you look into the eyes of these creatures, it changes you forever.
The people you are watching come from various countries around the world. They are of different ages, cultures, religious beliefs, and professions. They all have one thing in common. They believe they've made contact with beings from other worlds. They believe they've had alien encounters. No planet in our solar system besides Earth has the temperature, the atmosphere, or the water to support life. But could a distant star have planets like our own?
At this time, we have evidence for life in one place in the universe and one place only, planet Earth. Despite centuries of interest on the part of scientists in the possibility of life elsewhere, we still have no confirming evidence that life exists anywhere else but here.
From the dawn of history, mankind has told stories of intelligent, non-human creatures with great powers. Creatures not of this earth. Historians have evidence through writings of Aristotle that the possibility of alien beings was discussed as early as the 5th century BC, making the topic about 2,500 years old. The consideration of alien life took a giant step forward in the 16th century when the world absorbed the discovery by the astronomer Copernicus that the Earth was not the center of the universe. If Earth was just another planet, perhaps other planets were just like Earth. Inspired by this breakthrough in astronomy, British scientist John Wilkins wrote The Discovery of a World in the Moon in 1638. In it, he described an imaginary trip to the moon, which included meeting human-like moon inhabitants. Here in America, 19th century astronomer Percival Lowell insisted that he saw man-made canals on Mars, evidence, he claimed, of intelligent life. Lacking proof that life exists among the stars, mankind has populated outer space with figments of its collective imagination.
It's a common human trait, and probably one of the most basic human traits is the fear of the unknown. So that when we encounter unknown space, whether it be oceans or outer space or deepest, darkest forests, we tend to inhabit those, at least in our mind, with, let's say, monsters or serpents or aliens or these supernatural beings who threaten us. In a sense, it reflects our own fear of these spaces.
The first American report of alien contact is believed to be the account of Colonel H.G. Shaw, detailed in an 1896 edition of the Stockton Evening Mail in California. Colonel Shaw claimed that he and a friend encountered 3 strange beings in the town of Lodi. They were about 7 feet tall, thin and hairless, but they looked like humans. Because they were extremely lightweight and weak, they failed in their attempt to pick up the 2 men and drag them into their airship. The story ends with Colonel Shaw's quote,
"There is no doubt in my mind that these creatures came from Mars and wanted to procure an inhabitant of Earth."
Just 1 year later, Congressman turned farmer Alexander Hamilton claimed that aliens visited his farm in Leroy, Kansas. One April night in 1897, Hamilton was awakened by a disturbance among his cattle. He quickly dressed and called his son and his hired man to meet him outside. There he was astonished to see an airship over 100 feet long hovering 30 feet above the ground.
It was brightly lit from within, and everything was plainly visible. It was occupied by 6 of the strangest beings I ever saw. They were jabbering together, but we couldn't understand a word they said. Some noise attracted their attention, and they turned a light directly on us.
The ship began to buzz, then rise and fly off, dragging a heifer on a cable up with it. The next day, a neighbor brought Hamilton all that remained of the calf, its head, hide, and legs. Hamilton wrote an affidavit of his experience, which was signed by his son, the hired man, and 11 citizens who swore by his good name. At the same time some men were seeing airships, others were actually trying to build them. Still others were writing fantastic tales of future flight. Jules Verne and H.G. Wells published stories about Martian invasions and undersea adventure, giving birth to a genre later known as science fiction.
A good number of the people who believe that they have been abducted have been influenced in some manner by science fiction. I think science fiction gives them the images to work with. I think that they believe sincerely that they have been abducted. But I don't understand why an alien, again, why would an alien come all this distance?
Encouraged by breakthroughs in science and flight, scientist Hugo Gernsback started the Amazing Stories series of books in the 1920s to spark youth interest in science. He wrote of trips to distant planets, human space heroes, and evil alien beings. Filmmakers quickly embraced this new genre, including a brilliant young artist who would bring aliens right into American living rooms.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's indescribable. I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it. It's so awful. Its eyes are black and they gleam like a serpent. The mouth is a kind of V-shape with saliva dripping from its rimless lips.
In 1938, Orson Welles performed a live radio broadcast of The War of the Worlds. Thousands of Americans panicked when they thought they were hearing an actual news broadcast of a Martian invasion of New Jersey. With Germany on the march in Europe, many blamed the reaction on America's fear of invaders closer to home. In the years after the War of the Worlds broadcast, some people claimed to have actually seen spaceships and met their inhabitants. They called themselves contactees, and claimed that the aliens they met weren't marauding killers from Mars, but peaceful beings trying to save humanity. The most public of the contactees was a mystic named George Adamski. He not only claimed to have been visited by beings he called Space Brothers, he said they actually took him aboard their ship.
I was taken to the mothership and they're flown around, not too close to the moon, but with instruments. Similar, you might say, except it wasn't a camera, it was a regular sort of a telescopic instruments that we were able to see what was on the moon.
In 1952, Adamski showed photographs of scout craft from a Venusian mothership that bore an uncanny resemblance to chicken brooders available by mail order. While most ufologists acknowledge that Adamski either fabricated or garbled large parts of his stories, some believe the essence is true.
It's my belief that something at the core of the Adamski experience is correct. When we see motion picture film taken in Washington in 1965 and in the southeast of the United States in 1970, and still pictures taken in Italy and England and South America of craft essentially identical to what Adamski was talking about, we're forced to conclude that somewhere at the core of it, he did have some authentic experience.
In the late 1940s and throughout the 1950s, Europe buzzed with reports of UFO sightings and alien encounters, including blonde, human-like aliens spotted in Scandinavia.
Extraordinary beings visiting humans, with these beings having supernatural powers, coming from a distant place. These are the basic themes that you find in most myths.
In December 1954, several men from rural areas of Venezuela claimed to have had nighttime encounters with aliens. These aliens were described as small, hairy-clawed monsters who nearly dragged one victim into their spacecraft before he got away.
A lot of these experiences we have to consider in the context of hallucinations. Sleep deprivation causes hallucinations. Bad food sometimes. Molds on bread can cause hallucinations. Native American Indians have done that. There's these South American Yanomamo people who snort this powder stuff that sends them off in these hallucinogenic flying experiences. These kinds of experiences people have, near-death experiences, the light at the end of the tunnel, the spiraling effect, the alien abduction, floating out of the body experiences, these things can all be replicated quite easily by hallucinogenic drugs that occur naturally in the environment.
Although he wouldn't talk about it until the late 1970s, Brazilian Antonio Villas-Boas claimed he was forced into a spacecraft and coerced into sexual intercourse with a beautiful blonde alien female who looked human. Many of the stories of alien encounters describe rounded spacecraft with bright lights, yet three distinctive types of aliens emerge from them. The blondes are tall, attractive, and appear Nordic. The grays have smooth, hairless gray skin and look reptilian. Then there are the small, hairy, violent monsters, mostly reported in South America.
We don't know what's out there. We're sure that there's something out there, and so we create entities or beings to fill that space. And then, based on belief in their existence, it's natural then to believe in interaction with those beings.
Throughout the 1950s, around the world, contactees spoke of seeing aliens and meeting aliens. But in the 1960s, the stories took a new twist. On September 19, 1961, Betty and Barney Hill, a couple from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, said they believed they were kidnapped and taken aboard a UFO, that their memories of the entire incident had been wiped from their minds and could only be recalled with hypnosis. The Hill story became the basis for a best-selling book, Interrupted Journey, published in 1966. Believers maintain that the Hills' account inspired other abductees to come forward. Skeptics believe that their story set in motion a train of false reports.
I didn't remember this story until I underwent hypnosis. I saw lights following my car, and they came down out of the sky in back of me, and there was no sound. And it scared me to death. First I thought it was a helicopter or something. It almost looked like it was going to land on my car, and I speeded up. The next thing I remember is my car was literally ripped off the side of the road. I felt like I was going to crash, and it, like a giant hand, reached out and literally pulled my car off to the side of the road.
Dr. William Cohn is a psychologist and critic of the use of hypnotism to recover memories.
We've known for at least 200 years now that hypnosis is a lousy tool to recover memory. The people that are doing the research believe otherwise. They think that hypnosis is an accurate tool that you can put somebody into a trance, dig into their unconscious, and recover memories accurately. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of research studies say otherwise. So that basically you have people that not understanding the tool they're using, misusing it, and perpetrating a myth on the people that they're working with.
It seemed really obvious while I was on the table that they were really interested in my nervous system and the mechanics of my body, how I actually worked. I was lying on my stomach, and I could literally feel a flap, like an incision being made, and my back being opened up. I could feel the picking. I don't know whether they were using some sort of a pick or a finger, but I could hear kind of a hard, almost like tapping on wood sort of feeling, and I could feel vibration in my body. There was no pain. It was very obvious that they were poking at my spinal column. I think they were interested in how I worked, just mechanically.
But some abductees don't need hypnotism to remember their alien encounter. Colette Peters' memories of her abduction experience began when she was very young.
When I was approximately 5 years old, kindergarten age, I had a very unusual experience where I was in my bedroom in the evening after my parents had tucked me into bed, and I had three unusual beings that were about 3 feet tall approach the side of my bed, and the next thing I knew is that I was being raised up out of my bed through a beam of light, going through a closed window, over the trees in my backyard. And I thought it was a really neat experience because I had the sensation of flying, and I was grabbing the leaves and twigs off the tree on my way up at this beam of light. I found myself standing in a circular room on board a craft that was above me in the sky, and I was holding my father's hand, and there were these taller beings that had sort of gray, chalky white skin. They were about 5 feet tall with large slanted black eyes. And I observed my mother on a table where two beings were overlooking her.
Colette Peters' tale of her childhood abduction mirrors the vivid experience of many others. In 1983, to verify these stories, ufologists, led by Bud Hopkins, hired a psychologist to conduct 3 standard personality and psychology tests on 9 of the most credible abductees. Dr. Elizabeth Slater was not told until after making her conclusions about the patient's claims of alien abduction. Her findings included a slightly higher incidence of child sexual abuse. Further,
the group shared underlying emotional factors, including a degree of identity disturbance, some deficits in interpersonal sphere, and generally mild paranoid phenomena.
This study only provided another battleground for skeptics and believers. Skeptics felt this proved that abductees are disturbed individuals who channel their trauma into imagined abductions. Believers concluded that abductees would naturally be more disturbed than the average person.
Something happened to me. Psychiatrists know that for a fact. They're more sure of it than I am. What is it that happened to me that was so extraordinary? Just because I can't prove something happened to me, you can't prove that it didn't. I don't have the answer. I'm more frustrated about it than those people are, whoever those people are. It happened to me. It's not fun. This isn't something I asked for.
Abductions reported to psychologists, journalists, and hypnotists have become so prevalent that some of the more prominent professionals that deal with the phenomena organized the Abduction Study Conference held at MIT in 1992. One of the organizers was Harvard University psychiatrist Dr. John Mack, who was introduced to alien abduction phenomena in 1990.
John has said on many occasions that when people come into his office, they're completely unpredisposed to believe anything. Well, everyone coming into his office is there because they think they were abducted. The minute they go into his office, they're predisposed. The man is the world's most prominent abduction researcher. Why are they there?
As convincing as the claims made after hypnosis may seem, even if they are false memories, what is the explanation for those memories that are not the result of any hypnotic recovery method? Are they dreams or a real experience?
A tall being, which I'll refer to as the scientist, brought me into a room and showed me rows and rows of these little babies, hybrid babies. They were in very small containers, similar to shoe boxes, and each one, I could tell, looked similar to these beings and also half human. In my own opinion, I don't know why they're doing this. I would think that there are many different sorts of beings out there and they all have their own agendas.
Current abductee reports usually do not involve a simple kidnapping. Dozens report feeling small nodules beneath their skin, implanted tracking devices. Richard Price, who claimed that he was abducted several times since childhood, claims he discovered such a device implanted in his body. He brought it to Dr. David Pritchard, an MIT physicist and co-organizer of the MIT conference. In 1992, after lengthy, costly testing of the object, Dr. Pritchard concluded that the object was of terrestrial origin. No object has yet been taken from a human that has been certified non-terrestrial.
The aliens are very inconsiderate in their abductions because they traumatize human beings, they hurt human beings, they do horrible things to human beings. How inconsiderate of them. Then why are they so considerate to tuck them back in their beds? That makes no sense to me.
If you're coming upon a planet as we would, and yes, I have to judge them as I judge myself and other humans, and we wanted to check out a human being, we'd take one, and we'd do whatever we want to it.
I remember coming down in the beam of blue light, liking the sensation of flying and grabbing leaves, waking up in my bed, and my bed was filled with evidence of immature leaves from the top of an 80-foot tree that was in my backyard, the leaves and twigs in my bed, and we could not account for it. I went to call my parents, and they were at first told me it was a dream, but then when they saw the leaves and twigs in the bed, they were baffled and very concerned. Then to me, it seemed very real, like a real experience.
As the number of abductees increases and the stories become more extreme, the question arises, why now? Some ufologists believe aliens have been visiting Earth for centuries and that early civilizations mistook them for angels or devils. Others claim that extraterrestrials walked the Earth before humans did. Erich von Daniken's 1971 book, Chariots of the Gods, suggested that ancient pictographs, sculptures, and paintings pointed to visits by extraterrestrials during the early development of humanity. For example, cave drawings in France, South America, and Africa depict men in spacesuit-type attire, including antenna-like spirals on their headgear. Many skeptics believe that so-called witnesses suffer from overactive imaginations, influenced by fictional portrayals of little green men in spacesuits. But what, von Daniken asked, fed the imaginations of ancient people? Where, in ages preceding flight, would they come up with the notion of landing strips? Skeptical historians say that von Daniken and his peers have taken liberties with ancient artwork. But what of the reports from today's abductees?
They describe waking up in their bed, eyes open, not being able to move, watching some beings walk in the room. Maybe they feel a weight on their chest or they feel themselves floated out of the room. That's a classic sleep paralysis episode. Hundreds of people throughout history have had that happen to them. I've had it happen to me 4 or 5 times in my life. It's very real, it's very frightening, and we really don't know what it is. But I don't think it's alien abduction.
Dr. Michael Shermer is a professor of science and technology at Occidental College in California, a founder of Skeptic magazine.
The alien abduction phenomenon and the UFO phenomenon is one of the most interesting to me because it's emblematic of a social movement, what sociologists call a moral panic, what historians call like a witch craze. It's one of these things that starts snowballing, and when it's driven by the mass media, where the information is exchanged very quickly, you see it blossom, all on the flimsiest of evidence.
Modern reaction to the actual reports of alien contact has varied. It includes abject fear, hope for humanity's enlightenment, scientific curiosity, dismissive skepticism, and sheer amusement. While the debate goes on, the scientific community is working quietly to see if there might be life beyond Earth. At the 1996 meeting of the American Astronomical Society in San Antonio, scientists announced the discovery of several planets in distant galaxies that just might have the warm, watery conditions essential for life. Astronomy may be on the verge of discoveries as earth-shattering as those of Copernicus in the 16th century. NASA plans an ambitious 25-year program to search for other planetary systems, especially Earth-like planets that may be habitable.
The search for planets outside our own solar system, and for that matter, planets on which there is life, is a high priority in science and astronomy. There is a natural curiosity on the part of most people who become astronomers in this possibility of other worlds in space. It's in part why people become astronomers. They wonder about these mysteries of the cosmos, and they'd like to know. That curiosity, in fact, propels us to undertake research, to send probes out into space, to build instruments like the Hubble telescope that can see greater detail than we've ever seen before. So this is, in fact, a major theme in modern science, to look for other worlds in space and also to look for life in the universe besides our own.
Will we find other intelligent beings out there? If we do, will we discover that they found us first, as many claim? Or will we be the strange aliens who visit another planet's inhabitants?